said, happy Wednesday. Good to see all of you. The topic tonight is equalizing, exchanging self for others, and really precious practice, and one of the key ways to cultivate bodhicitta. This is in the context of what we've been studying, which is the Lamrim Chenmo, the stages of the path to enlightenment. And as we enter in that, it's really nice to take a moment to reflect on how rare and precious an opportunity like this is. The foundational practices that we start with, we really reflect upon these 18 conditions that we have, a rare and precious human rebirth, but not all humans have it. You know, there's over 7 billion out there, many of whom can't read or write, many of whom don't have access to education, many of them just trying to survive. And then of those that have all these resources, have electricity and education and finances, how many of them actually even have the thought or the inclination to think about what's meaningful in life? What's the purpose of their life? And to look deeply at a path that can actually cause inner peace, tranquility, and remove suffering. How about being free of all stress, worries, and concerns? How about that? There's people that don't even think it's possible. I hear it all the time. Even from some Buddhist teachers, which I find fascinating. And when we think about how rare an opportunity is just to even be interested, and then, even if you're interested, how could you find it? How could you have access to such a teaching? The teaching that we're about to hear is from the lineage all the way down from the Buddha, and this has been maintained. And the compiler of this particular teaching, Tisha, traveled and learned from all the great masters of all the great lineages of all the traditions of Buddhism. He spent 12 years studying under one person out on one of the islands off of India. He spent years of his life in meditation and practice. And he spent years of his life studying the different techniques and teachings. And he traveled to Tibet and he gave these teachings. In the late 1300s into 1400s, Lama Tsongkhapa, an incredible master, came and took these teachings and wrote these commentaries. And here's another incredible master that spent years of meditation and practice and study and compiled volumes of texts and really understood and directly realized the truth of enlightenment and this path, and put this Lamrim Chenmo together that we get to hear. And how many countless other teachings and teachers and monasteries and caves were involved in those people understanding these teachings and carrying it from the 1400s all the way to our present time. And then in that sense, if you were 20 years ago, could you get this teaching? 20 years ago, pretty hard to find a teaching like this. So 20 years ago, people would have to find an old Buddhist text that was maybe translated in English of some sort and maybe try to get some understanding from it. Here we are, and what made it possible for you to be here in this moment, to receive a teaching that is literally a part of the stages of the path of enlightenment to remove all suffering from self and others. Wow, huh? Or we're just going to another Dharma talk. Yeah. It adds a different context when we get a perspective. And we get to see the time, effort, and energy of so many who embody these teachings. They weren't just teachers. They embody these practices, and they brought it unerringly to the moment that we have, to my teacher, who was a great Tibetan Lama. And here we are to receive such teachings. So it's nice to take a moment to reflect upon that. It brings a little more clarity and motivation to pay attention, to put into use what we hear, but always to discern what we hear. Not because it's taught, not because it's said, not because it's in a book. The discerning mind takes this in and says, does this make sense? Is this for real? Could that work? And it checks it, it tests it, and says, yeah, this makes sense, or this doesn't make sense, or I challenge that. Or maybe this is worthy of some investigation. In which case, rather than just say, yeah, it's worthy of investigation, we actually need to investigate it. Which means, we need to go from an interesting talk to really, something to think about, to something I'll actually try to do. All of these teachings, and right at the start, the real specialty of the Lamrim Chenmo is that it takes all the teachings and it puts it in a really nice order, and it one of the key benefits is that it can be put into practice, that it's not a philosophical discussion. This is something I can do right now to improve the quality of my life and others, and really make my life meaningful and be beneficial. So it's nice to just take a moment to reflect upon that. I mean, just in my own travels yesterday, I got to travel back from California on a couple different flights, and I find it's a great place to practice Dharma. And the benefits, so right now, the benefits of Dharma. How about, when I travel, and travel's stressful for a lot of people. Airports are full of stress. And people do a lot of waiting. I read on somebody else's post the other day. He was in traffic somewhere. He took a picture. He said it's a good thing he gave up waiting years ago. As waiting is so counterproductive. Why wait for anything ever? You could be waiting at an airport for your next flight. Or you could be relaxing and enjoying a nice, comfortable chair and maybe a Starbucks coffee. I had Pete's yesterday, or Pete's coffee. You could be waiting, or you could be curious and engaged in the people around you and watch where people come from and have some conversations. You could be waiting, or you could actually be actually relaxed and at ease. Like all day long we're trying to find some time to relax, right, to get our work done so we can relax. Well, here you are in a comfortable chair, and maybe they had some frozen yogurt. Have some frozen yogurt and relax in an airport where you'll get to shortly have an opportunity to experience the miracle of flight. Yeah. In a nice, comfortable chair. If you're not too big. I'm little, so it's pretty, I can even get narrow ones. And, but the mind can go to, oh my God, can't get my luggage in this thing, and there's these people, and if this person next to me starts talking to me, oh my, that'll be horrible. Yeah, and, or, wow, what a wonder that we can be here with all these other people who are just like me, finding their way. And I like to be curious. I like to think about, everyone there. I was sitting there at the airport, and I was looking at people, and I was thinking, this person has a family, and this person comes from a family, and this person has friends, and this person has someone that they're talking to or texting, and people, and their lives, and you start rippling out their lives, and how this little group, and how many people they're involved with, and where are they coming from, and what are they doing? What are their hopes and joys? It's really quite fascinating to have some time to just people watch, and understand everyone you come in contact with has their whole lives and thoughts and aspirations and people to see. I was sitting next to a guy. He was on the phone. having the worst day ever, having to wait 5 hours at the airport. And but in the same conversation, it shifted from having to wait, and this flight. And the guy asked him something else, and he talked about, oh yeah, and that was really great. And then I started doing this, and from the start of his phone conversation to the end of the phone conversation, he was a different guy, because he was starting to talk about different things on his trip and how wonderful things were. And then the flight, and we got on the flight together, and it was different. And what changed in 5 minutes? From miserable to happy. Yeah, what you're paying attention to, right? What you're thinking, perception. Where's our stress, worries, and fears? Is it out there somewhere? Yeah, it's a good thing. I read that Facebook post that a guy said he quit waiting a long time ago. I think that's wonderful. Don't stop waiting, because we have an opportunity to make this moment meaningful and to engage in it. To be where we are in a miracle of life, Yeah. So that's just a small sample of, when we start practicing Dharma and we start training our mind to really have perspective, to have clarity, to really start understanding when I'm stressed, worried, feared, angry, resentful, or whatever, I'm pretty much delusional. I actually think that something out there is causing my stress. And Buddhism really says, well, let's live in the real world. Let's live in the real world. Let's see things a little more accurately. And the basic premise is simple. That mental afflictions, anger, resentment, jealousy, frustration, on and on, are dependent upon misperception. You have to be delusional to have them. And that your natural state of mind, you'll already find peace, bliss, luminosity. And Dalai Lama will say love's there. It's already there. It's kind of nice. Built upon that is one thing that flaws all the others. And the source of all my mental delusions, the source of all my mental afflictions. And that one thing is labeled John. My own self-centered, cherishing attitude. This is what creates all the conflict. And so, as we go into the teaching tonight, equalizing and exchanging self for others, it is directly addressing the key source of my suffering. I think I'm more important than you. Just flat out. That's the way it is. And as long as I'm more important than you, I'm going to suffer. I think about me and mine. I think about what I want. I think about my day, what I had planned. My flight's late. I don't really care about yours. My flight's late. I have a broken leg. I didn't get to do this. Notice I comes in front of all those. John. As if I'm the only one in the world, right? Who's delayed, but you don't understand. And so as we approach this equalizing, exchanging self for others, they talk about the disadvantages of thinking about you first. And number one is a really exaggerated delusional sense and hypersensitivity to all things you. Everything becomes very exaggerated because it's all about me. And one of the key illustrations of this is real simple, which we can all experience. When a friend of ours, has some type of a problem, right? Some type of a problem. They're really worried or stressed. And they share that problem with you. You may have noticed that it's pretty easy for you to diagnose the problem and go, well, yeah, I get that. If you just stop doing this, or if you just let go of that, and if you stop, whatever, it'll be easy. It's not that big a deal. You notice how clear and easy it is you can give even relationship advice, job advice to somebody else. But when it's you, that same situation becomes amplified, and it's big. Because it's about me and my life, what I want, and my family and my friends. you know, I'm not emotionally involved with, so, you know, it's pretty easy for me to diagnose it. So we start to notice these things, that, wow, as long as I'm, you know, focused on me and what I want, my every little thing can be really stressed, really very simple things. Being stuck in traffic can be can be just rage, right? And you're in a car, and there's no physical pain, but you're late and you're in traffic. Causes suffering. I mean, when you're not in it, I'm talking about, you're like, really? But when you're in it, oh my, I have places to go, things to do. I had a plan. Plans get you in trouble too. And it causes, so the other sort of disadvantage between, you know, the exaggerated qualities of every little event in our life is the sort of sense of competition, jealousy, and we start comparing ourselves with others, right? You know, and how I'm doing and what's going on. And then my quality of life even, and how I start comparing with others. You know? And it's funny, if the condition doesn't arise, the affliction can't arise. So I can be pretty comfortable and have a nice little house and a nice little setting, and somebody else shows me, wow, they've got this new, you know, whatever it is, new TV, new, you know, central air, they've got this, you know, and all of a sudden, wow, I don't have that. I don't have that. And I get envious, or they have a vacation to go somewhere, or something else to do, and now I'm lacking something that wasn't lacking 10 minutes before I started talking to that person. Wow, they get to go to vacation in Kauai. I don't get to go to vacation in Kauai. I really would like to go to vacation in Kauai. My life would be so much better if I went to Kauai. North Beach, yeah. But I have to suffer right here in the beautiful Rocky Mountains underneath Mount Sopris. With these two rivers that come through here. It's miserable. I don't get to go to Kauai. See how these mental afflictions arise? Coming here, wow, I live where two rivers come together, the Crystal River and the Roaring Fork, and people travel from all over the world to come here. What a gift that is. Until my friend tells me they're going to Kauai. You can just look on Facebook, right, and you'll see a picture of some little hut on a beautiful lagoon, right, with crystal waters. I would be so happy if I was there.
Western paradise.
Yeah. And I forget about how happy I can be here. And then I could be there and be miserable, right? Because the fantasy doesn't tell me that I could be in Kauai and get food poisoning, right? It doesn't tell me that. The story doesn't go there. The story tells me I can be relaxed and at ease. And guess what? At the airport, you can be relaxed and at ease. You're in a comfortable chair. You've got frozen yogurt and coffee and, you know, a fascinating array of people to watch and engage in conversations with from all over. But it'd be so much better in Kauai. What's really different? You know, what's really different? You could be in Kauai and be absolutely miserable, couldn't you? Get some bad news, have a fight with your partner, whatever. Yeah. So when we embark on this, we really want to start to look at how, when I really think of my own self-cherishing attitude, that actually creates suffering. And the things that I think will cause me happiness are actually the source of a lot of mental suffering. Because I'm really just thinking about me and what I want and how it can be better. And I'm trying to avoid suffering, and I'm first. And I see the differences in others, and I'm jealous, or I'm envious, or I'm competitive, and then I have to, you know, be like so-and-so, and I have to fit into whoever. And it's really a self-centered. Low self-esteem is very self-centered esteem. It's a self-centered focus of lack of esteem, of lack of worth, of lack of value, but it's about me, not you. And so, and we really start to understand the disadvantages of a self-cherishing attitude, an attitude that is looking out for John first. Automatically, when I'm thinking of John first, I just came into conflict with 7 billion other human beings. That's kind of a problem. It's kind of a problem. There's an automatic stress. And so when we start thinking about the benefits, what if I stopped thinking like that? What if I started to think that you're just as important as me? Revolutionary. I mean, I know it can't be true. But let's just toy with the idea. Let's just toy with the idea that you could actually be as important as me. You know, equalizing and exchanging self with others. When you start thinking that, wow, that you probably have hopes and aspirations and probably have needs and desires and probably are working on how to live life and probably want to be a good human being and live a meaningful life. Just like me. It's interesting. You probably want to be happy. You probably want to avoid suffering. You've probably known sadness and despair just like me. You're probably trying to get your needs met just like me. You're probably learning how to do this thing called life just like me. And something kind of shifts there when I start realizing, wow, you have value and meaning, and your life possibly could be as important as mine. There's a lessening of stress all of a sudden. And we start to think about others are just as important as me. And then a radical thought, there's 7 billion others and there's only one of me. Oh my God, maybe you're actually more important. That's complete insanity, isn't it? I'm one. You're 7 billion. Yeah. So how does that work? And then we start toying with the idea, are you really so different than me? Are you so different? Matter of fact, what makes you different than me? Because I'm me and you're other, right? But from where you're sitting, you're you and I'm other. It's an interesting switch of a label, isn't it? Am I me or are you other? Or are you and I'm other? Matter of fact, if we were all sharing a pizza, and I give you a piece of pizza, and I'm going to eat a piece of pizza, that pizza is going to become me, isn't it? And the piece I gave you will become you. But what if I ate the piece that I was going to give to you? That would be me. The other person might be you. What is you different than me? Me and others start blurring a little bit, doesn't it? Matter of fact, what is it that's you? What is it that we cling to? That's you. Your biological material, where'd that come from? It came from your parents, right? Theoretically. The other stuff came from cauliflower and beans, and I actually had a bean burger for lunch. That was me. What is it that's John? What is it I'm so clinging to? And is it the same John that was here yesterday? Is it the same John that was 5 years ago? Or is this idea of John changing all the time? So when we enter into this, it's interesting to start understanding that what we're clinging to and grabbing onto so fiercely as being so important often is nothing more than a mental habit. A mental habit of saying, this is who I am, and I am like this. If I start observing things, I might start to notice that there's not a lot of difference between me and you, and actually, I only exist in dependence upon you, and you only exist in dependence upon me. And how I exist and how I arise is in dependence upon your perception of me. And likewise, me, you. And John's a label. I've had other labels. Jerk, a lot of things have arisen, labels. Teacher, monk, not a monk now a teacher. And as I've mentioned many times, a while ago I was a commuter. Before that I was a consumer. Yesterday I was arising as grandpa. And all those arisings are in dependence upon who I'm with and at that time and in that moment, and then it changes and things change. And we change. And what's me and other? So when we get in this, it's really nice to start reflecting upon the idea that that these labels can change. They can change. And that the me that I grab so hard and so fiercely to, what you'll find, and has been investigated since, as long as people have been investigating, it's really hard to find you. It's really hard to find what is it that makes you, me, John. What is it? I mean, there's a body, but even if I cut my arm off and throw it over there, is that me? Or am I still here? Or is that me? If I lose my leg, is that me? At which point does it stop being me, my leg, or my body? And if I'm eating food, at what point does it stop being food? At what point does it start becoming me? When? But we often don't look so clearly at things. We just think, I'm me, I'm John, and you're you. And immediately arises, I'm going to look out for me and mine. And there's no inner peace, no tranquility to be found in looking after the needs of me and mine. There's stress found in looking after the needs of me and mine. You will find inner peace, tranquility, and well-being in looking after the needs of we and ours. Because we're part of something. And we're connected to each other. And we exist in dependence upon each other. And everything that you have in your life is because of others. Everything, And the ability to rewrite that. And the interesting piece here that I want to bring up, different than what I normally say, is also in this context of equalizing others. We're equalizing in sense of me and you right now, but we can also equalize the others are just as valuable, because typically we look at people and we like some and we don't like others, and some we're fairly neutral about, some are strangers I could care less about. And then there's the people we don't like, and there's the people we do like, and then we start looking at, why do I like them and why do I not like them? Of course, that's typically because they think the way I think and they have my values. But I can also say that, they did something. They did something I didn't like. Right? They did something I didn't like. And it's so easy to focus on what they did that I didn't like that I don't really see all the things that they did that helped me. Whenever they're paying their taxes, it's helping me. Whenever, whoever built the roads or the cars or the job or the economy, that's helping me. Everything I have and all the things that people do that are helping me. My mom, if I get angry at my mom, right? My mom, she did this and that's why I'm like this. How many meals did your mom cook for you? Can you imagine? How many loads of laundry? Wow, we can focus on one thing they did that I didn't like. Imagine how many meals they cooked. How many times they went shopping. How many times they got up when they didn't want to and they were tired. Wow, in a lifetime. We don't see that. We see that they did this and they're kind of being naggy. I forgot about the 52,100, meals they've cooked, whatever it is. Or how many times they did this. I don't look at that. So when we start thinking about equalizing exchange and self for others, we want to start equalizing their value. There's people I don't like who are just as valuable as the people I do like. And these other people I don't care or even know, they can be people I like or people I don't like. And these labels can shift They can shift in a heartbeat too as soon as somebody tells me their political affiliation. You're an idiot, right? Up until that point, we were friends, man. You know, now I just lost all respect for you. And had we not had that conversation, it was all good. And could someone who actually thinks different from me still actually have some value? Of course. And what makes me think I'm so right? Do I think the same way I thought 5 years ago about a lot of things? Do I think the way I thought 10 years ago about a lot of things? Or do I change with new thoughts and opinions? And can I see that others, from their side, whatever they think makes sense based on the way they were raised, the environment they were raised in, what they've been exposed to, their experiences in life? Sure. Same way mine has shaped me. So equalizing exchange self for others is starting to look more accurately at the world we live in and stop focusing so much on me, where I will not find peace, where I will find stress, where I will find worry, where I will find angst, where I will find jealousy, where I will find resentment. I mean, if we want that, yeah, keep doing it. But how about living a little more accurately and start realizing that all these other beings in this world, and I mean even animals, they all want happiness, they all want to avoid suffering, they're trying to find their way, get their needs met. So am I. And that we have an interdependent relationship, and everything in my life, everything I have is because of so many people throughout time, including, at this moment even, some old Tibetan lamas that sat in a cave for 20 years so that you could be here. And how many moms and dads and how many people working second jobs and all that stuff that went on. And the people are valuable. And honoring that. So when we equalize and exchange self with others, we start with the softening of me being the most important being in the room and start recognizing that everyone else is just as valuable, and then spreading that out and starting to think about others, people I like and don't like, are still benefiting me, and others, and I'm part of others, and I'm just one little being in the 7 billion of humans, and then you add in all the other beings. I'm not so important. I'm clearly not the center of it all. Clearly not the center of it all. And it's actually to my benefit that you're happy and doing well. Because when you're happy and doing well, and you have resources and opportunity, you're not creating havoc and harm on others or yourself. When you feel comfortable, safe, and loving, the people around you are safe. When we're angst and angry, the people around us are not safe. And when people don't have access to education resources, well, guess what? It might be breaking into my car. Yeah, that's not so fun. It might be yelling at me. That's not so fun. Others being happy, content, well-being, having opportunity and resources makes everything better. And when you have peace and contentment in your heart, you share that with others, and that spreads. So this idea of thinking about others actually becomes the antidote to the biggest root of all of my own suffering, which is my own self-cherishing attitude, which is the real source of all my mental and emotional angst. It's the source. I mean, can you actually have a mental or emotional affliction that doesn't come from, I want it to be different? Investigate that. Is that possible? You can have physical pain, right? That'll hurt. But the suffering will become, I don't want it to hurt. It really comes, I want it to be different than it is. And for some reason, I think it should be different, and that's pretty delusional too, isn't it? I think it should be different. Is that even possible? Because I think if it happened, there's a cause for it to happen. Right? I mean, if something happened, there's a cause. So how could it have been different? How could it have been different? There's a cause for something. Investigate it. If my mind says, well, that shouldn't have happened, that doesn't even make sense. It did happen, and there's a reason it happened. Track it down. Now, I can say, I would not like that to happen in the future, so I can do something different. As a matter of fact, only by accepting things as they are am I empowered to change them. If I can't accept it, what am I going to do to address or change it? I need to accept it happen and see how it is. So there's these delusional states that really come from a self-cherishing attitude, and that self-cherishing attitude is really delusional and tells stories like how much better I'd be in Kauai. Or one of my favorite one, if ever you start a sentence with if only. Yeah, good luck with the rest of that one. If only this would have happened, it would all be different. You know?
Only I had a time machine.
Right. And if only we went back in time, what we don't realize, you know, here's the story, right? If only I would have taken that graduate program and I would have got that degree and I'd have worked for Apple and hung out with that. Well, first off, that never happened. But the story only says I would have hung out with the guy who created Apple. But the story doesn't say if I would have gone to college and roomed with a homicidal maniac. It doesn't say if I went to college, maybe I got hit by a car. It doesn't say if I, because nothing happened. But if you would have gone there, who knows what would have happened? Could have eaten food and got poisoned. Could have had Ebola. Who knows? It doesn't tell us that. It just makes up another story that would have been just wonderful. If only. All of which never happened anywhere but my mind, which has taken me away from the incredible opportunity of this moment, where you have opportunity, resources, incredible amount of freedom and choice, unlimited potential, and you have a rare and precious human rebirth to actually be liberated in this lifetime of all suffering, right now, in this lifetime. But our mind doesn't usually go there. Right? So we want to bring this mind back to reality, truth, and stop telling stories. Those stories are centered on a sense of self, and thinking about equalizing, exchanging self for others actually becomes the antidote to the real source of my suffering, a self-cherishing attitude. This is a way of cultivating bodhicitta, the great compassion, the force, the mind that can liberate and achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So we've gone through the 7-point cause and effect, and that's one method that's taught in this teaching. The other method, this equalizing, exchanging self for others, are these meditative reflections about equanimity, equalizing, seeing others as more valuable, and then actually exchanging for others. And so that's where it really becomes an incredibly powerful practice, where I start actually offering all of my virtue and wisdom to you and become willing to take your suffering. So it's a practice called Tonglen meditation, really wonderful practice, giving and receiving. And so the practice of Tonglen is the idea of visualizing others. And, you usually start with someone you really like. It's much easier to do. And the idea is that we can visualize them in front of us. And we know that there's someone we like who's suffering. Like right now I have a couple people I know. One's in the hospital and the other one, is suffering from brain cancer. And I can visualize them. And in the meditation, the beautiful visualization my teacher taught was my self-cherishing attitude is this like little black hard dot right here in my heart that just means I am more important than everybody else. This is it. And if I can visualize this person in front of me, who needs help. Well, I can, in the meditation, visualize that from them. In this case, I'm this person with the illness, brain cancer, that on my in-breath, their illness comes out in this black sort of smoke and comes in to my breath. I'm receiving their suffering, the brain cancer. I'm becoming willing to receive that. And it comes in, and as it touches my heart, the willingness of taking this in destroys the self-cherishing attitude. Radiant white light comes out. And this virtue of that comes out and goes into them. And with each breath, you see them getting healthier and well and vibrant. And I become willing to take on their suffering. And this practice, it's a beautiful meditation, Tonglen. And you can see how, if you're willing to do that, it's going to really attack the self-cherishing attitude. Well, we start with people we like, and then we expand it out to people that we're neutral with, people we don't really know. And for some reason, I always think of the postman, I don't really know the guy, but I see him a lot, and but people, the cashiers or people we come in contact with. When I used to do this practice, I'd walk to the temple in Long Beach. I would notice the faces of everyone I'm walking by on the way there, because I don't really know them, but I wanted to memorize their face, so when I meditated, I'd put them there. And but I would know that everyone I come in contact with who's I don't really know, guess what? Just like at the airport, they've got aspirations, desires, families, and concerns and worries, and they've had struggles or successes in school. They've been bullied, and they've been loved, and they've had all these things just like me. So you bring that attitude to it. And then you work it out to people you really struggle with, people you don't like. And so you can visualize taking on their suffering and wishing them well. And while that sounds very difficult and it's something you need to work up to, what would be more logical than really wishing the people you don't like that they get better, that they become more loving and more kind, that they have less stress and less worry and less suffering? Really, because if they had more of that, they're going to bring less struggle in the world. People give what they have. So it's actually quite doable. But again, we need to work up to it. Now, the other piece to this practice is another wonderful training, is that when I do actually have pain, when I do actually have, whether it be a physical pain, a medical condition, or just emotional pain, my sadness, that I'm willing to, instead of run from it, I'm willing to embrace it with the idea that I want to take this on so others don't have to. I want to take this on so others don't have to. Let me take this pain so someone else doesn't have to feel it. Again, just lessening my self-cherishing attitude. So a really beautiful, beautiful practice within the Tonglen genre. So Tonglen is sort of giving and taking. Now, common questions that come up with this is, well, what if I really get their cancer? My teacher pretty much assured me I don't have that much power. Yeah, it's very subtle that way. But what we're really working with is our own mind. We're trying to cultivate the mind that actually would be willing to do that. That mind, the mind of bodhicitta that would be willing to actually endure the suffering of others for their benefit, selflessly, is the antidote to my self-cherishing attitude. And is the mind that will really get you out of bed in the morning to make good use of a day that will never come again. To cultivate your highest potentials, not just so that you can have a trip to Kauai, but so that you could truly eliminate suffering in your own lives and the lives of others. And that this is doable. It's not a pie-in-the-sky fantasy land thing. That this is actually doable. And it's doable in a very logical way. What creates the mental sufferings that we have? Other than me, ultimately, wanting things to be different than they are. And so, bringing this mind of bodhicitta into our practice is one. Yeah, no worries. Bringing this mind of bodhicitta, this aspiration, is one that really unlocks that door and provides sort of the fuel to really engage in practice, even when we're tired. Because we're doing it for everybody. We're doing it for everybody. So, I'd like to try the practice. I'm trying to think if I skipped a point there. We covered the disadvantages, the advantages, and we looked at equalizing different ways that we equalize myself with you, and we looked at the ways that we equalize others. And we looked at the really fascinating piece of what makes me and you different or not. That's really the meat of it all, is when we really lessen this sense of self-grasping. Because the nature of mind, that's where we started, the nature of mind is luminous, non-conceptual, blissful. That is verifiable. I mean, you can get to that in meditation. You can become a dedicated meditator, and you can dissolve that grasping and just rest your awareness in the state of your natural state of mind. And that's what you find. It's replicated again and again and again. What covers that up is John. And all the delusions that come with John, and all of my attachments, and all of my desires, and all of my aversions. That's what keeps the things. And that's the thing that just keeps making very simple things like waiting at an airport intolerable. Yeah. So it's nice when you go to airports. I was at San Francisco airport, and this lady grabbed me and said, trying to think of it. It's where you don't have to wait. They have the pre-board thing, TSA pre-board, but it was a particular company. And it said, you get us, you don't have to wait in there. And she told me, boy, the waits right now are really long and just crazy. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's 6 in the morning. I'm finding it hard to believe that the line's going to be that bad. Just saying. I mean, I could be wrong. But I wasn't really awake because I got up at 4 in the morning. It was probably actually only 5 in the morning, really. So it was really early in the morning. I hadn't even had coffee yet. But I just told her, I'm going to pass right now. She wanted to give me a free trial so I wouldn't have to endure the intolerable line of security. And so anyway, I passed. She looked at me like I was crazy. And I went in, and the line, which was funny because the line didn't seem that long. And but as you're waiting there, I noticed, we're in this one line, and you see other people moving. But there's a mental state that as you're staying there, not seeming to move, and somebody's getting hung up, it seems to be taking long. But when I looked at my watch, it was really like 10 minutes. But there was sort of a delusion that was like, wow, this is a long time. It was really about 10 minutes. It didn't correlate. It was just fascinating. I was observing it. But the point I was trying to make is if you go to the airport early, you'll have a lot less stress. And that's what I told her. I told her, I'm hours early. I don't really care. I always get to the airport like 2 or 3 hours early at minimum. And even if it's local, I just, I get there and I get my little cup of coffee and I relax and I watch people and I maybe do a little work on a computer, and I don't have stress because I'm not worried about the thing. But that's just a physical thing we can do. It's just something you can do. But you'll notice the mind will, even in that line, the mind started looking at this line going, it's just one metal detector here, It's early in the morning, so they didn't open up a lot, and there is just a line. It just seemed like a long time, but it was only 10 minutes. So if we start noticing how our mind plays these tricks, we start noticing again, even the desire that, hey, I could be in that. I don't have to wait in this line for $179. I think it's for a year or something, but I would have got it free today. But what happens if you actually would have taken that free one and walked right through? And then waiting in that line might seem like an intolerable thing. I always find that fascinating. It's kind of like getting the really nice bed, and then you can't sleep in another bed. You know, as we get these nice little acclamations in life, other things seem intolerable. I just think it would be great if for 1 year they took remote controls away from people. Imagine how intolerable life would be if they had to get up. It would just seem. And yet, before any of that, there was no suffering. In other words, the mental affliction needs this to arise. And, you know, it's the same thing. If you're just perfectly content until someone says they're getting a week in Kauai, and now I'm not having a week in Kauai. It's like that. There's a mind, and this mind is coming from a very important sense of self. And so all of this is really helping you just start living in the real world, which is right now, if you can't be happy, it's not out there that's going to make it so. It really isn't. It really isn't. And John is the problem. John's the problem. And the dynamic that we find is as I change John, all of you suddenly get better. You start becoming less annoying and nicer people. And I didn't need to change you. I changed me and you change. That's the beautiful thing, is we change ourselves, we change the whole world we live in. And so our problem is we really think that if you guys would just buck up and straighten up, I would be better. And yet, we've had those people that are wonderful in our life, and they've bucked up, and we're happy, and then we meet someone else, and we're miserable, and then it's Tuesday, and I'm upset again, and again, and again. And this is all coming from where? So this Tonglen practice is this really wonderful opportunity to really work at the core, the heart of my self-cherishing attitude. And yeah, we got a few minutes left. So I just wanted to do a little short one, just so you get a taste of it. And we'll do it with somebody that you really like, okay? Somebody you like, somebody who's been really there for you, that might have a little suffering in their life. And what we'll do is we'll just take a few breaths, and I'll have you visualize them there. And then become willing, the thought that I really want them to be well. I want them to be healthy. And so with our in-breath, we just visualize, their illness, their emotional trauma, whatever the problem is with them, coming out of their body and coming into your breath and hitting you right here. And as it hits you in the heart, this radiant, virtuous, all of your kindness and virtue and wisdom comes out and goes into them. And with each breath, they just get a little better. A smile comes to their face. A little ease comes to their face. A little less tension. And you start seeing them getting better with each breath. Okay? So we'll try it out for just a few minutes. Let the bell just be an invitation to breathe, an invitation to enjoy this breath that gives you life. Just relax and be aware of it. And now take a moment to call to mind someone that you care for, someone that's struggling a little bit, or maybe struggling quite a bit. Could be in the hospital, or could be just struggling with some problems in their life right now. But take a moment and bring them to mind as clearly as possible, seated in front of you, seeing their suffering. And Now with your heartfelt wish, really set the intention. May they be well. May I be able to help them be well. And with this aspiration, become aware of the breath again, and with each breath that comes into your body, let it draw out their suffering and become willing to take their suffering upon your breath. And with each out-breath, give them all of your love and all your virtue, and see them with each breath relaxing a little bit, letting the tension fade away, seeing them become well, happy, and whole. Take a few moments to try this out. And when you're ready, just bring your awareness forward. So how did that work for you? Yeah, it takes the real mental state, and the aspiration really becomes the important thing. And as you do it more, you'll get a nice visualization with it. But if you can just start seeing them lighten up, let them get a little better, really have that wish and be willing to just take that on and endure some of that suffering for them. It's an incredibly powerful practice. It's something that was actually secret for many years. It was a secret practice, and it became more widely available and permission given to teach to others. Just a lot of misperceptions around it. And so this practice, though, my particular teacher, a lot of people call him the Tonglen Lama, Geshe Gelsen. They said if he was breathing, he was doing Tonglen. So all the time he was thinking about taking on the suffering of others and giving them love. And so we can do this. It's not something you need to be seated formally like we did. It's something that as you're walking down the street, even seeing people struggle at the airport yesterday, seeing all this tension and just, may they be well and happy and taking that in the breath that can be done. And I'll tell you, what you're not doing when you're doing that is you're not stressing about all your little stuff and not being in Kauai. And it's connecting you with and engaging with the world around you in a way that's really meaningful. And every breath becomes a meaningful experience. So it's not something, again, you have to do in a formal meditation. It's nice to do it in a formal setting so you get used to it a little bit. But when you're in line and you see everybody else waiting, let's send them some love. Or, I typically try to have a little conversation with them about something. But that's a really great time when you're in line with people, I'm from Southern California, so when we go to the DMV or something, there's lots of opportunities there, man. It's so fascinating to come here, and it's like there's a counter and they say, "Hi, can we help you?" No, you don't understand. I need a number and some attitude, and I'll come back, you know. But, yeah. So, but you know, depriving me of my Tonglen practice. So, these opportunities happen all the time, and there are things that we can do all the time when we see suffering, and there's a real softening of the heart that takes place, and a real way of engaging with others in a really meaningful way. And this is a Buddhist teaching, but just straight up psychology, neuroscience, and all that, we'll found again and again and again that the number one way to reduce stress, anxiety, fears, and depression and so forth in life is a meaningful life. When you feel that you're doing things that are meaningful, that you're valuable as a being, that you're doing things that have integrity, it reduces all that. And again and again. So it's a valuable practice, really helpful. Boom, right on time. So, yeah, I think I have time for one question if anyone does have something that's jumped up. Okay. Yes. What's your name?
Yeah. I'm Dave.
Hi, Dave. John.
Nice to meet you, John. It's good, wonderful to hear you teaching today.
Thank you.
I am dealing with a situation that leads to constant self-obsession and self-absorbment. And what it is I kind of lost my material trip and wound up over time in the home of somebody who's very hard to get along with.
Yeah.
I'd say hard for me to get along with because that's probably more honest, but actually he's a difficult person.
Yeah.
He gets very angry. And 2 nights ago, it was the amount of garlic that went into something that I was cooking. And when I walked away, because he was yelling and screaming and spitting in my face while he was talking and poking his finger at me, he came behind me and continued until I responded. And at first, I thought I might visualize him, except that I thought it was too mixed. You know, my emotions towards this individual right now are too mixed. I want to actually get to the point where I can practice tumbling with him.
Right. Yeah, that's a goal to get to.
So I chose a friend who is very close to me, who has a very hard time being happy.
Yeah.
And he tends to have some kind of real stressed out thing that happens all the time. They even call him Bummer Bill. It's his nickname. You know?
Yeah.
And
I used to be that guy. Yeah.
I love this person very much. I traveled all over the world with him, lived on the street with him. We were very close. And I visualized seeing him smile, and that's why I started smiling. And I started to cry, because he hardly ever does.
Yeah.
But I could see right in front of me him smiling the way he does when he's like cutting through that for a minute. But I'm just concerned that when I go back into my environment where I'm living again tonight, or tomorrow, or the next day, or a week from now, the same thing is going to arise. And I struggle to create the space in my own heart to be able to say, he's suffering. He's screaming, yelling, threatening me because he's suffering.
Right.
I know this intellectually.
Yeah. Intellectual knowledge is often not much help. Yeah, and that's a difficult situation. So, and for those of you online, it was the question was around, you know, being in an environment where you have to live with someone, and it's a very challenging environment. And so one of the things to understand is, first off, we're human, which is actually a good thing. You know, as soon as I say that, I hear my other teachers saying, when we say we're only human, that is a self-imposed limitation. So, but we are where we are. And sometimes, especially when we hear really wonderful teachings, you know, I hear teachings from my teachers or the Dalai Lama or so forth, we'll come out of that teaching thinking, I should be, you know, Captain Compassion. I should be able to endure anything. It's all in my mind. And what we're doing now is comparing where we are with enlightened beings. Right? And I'm not there yet. And so I have to go, well, given the situation with where I am at, I'm not, and I have difficult situations. Sometimes it's not that I have to be able to be strong enough to deal with every adverse thing. Sometimes, if possible, I need to get out of the situation. All right. Too many times, I've had a friend of mine who is a Buddhist teacher and so forth, and just thought he should be able to endure any situation or any problem, and it created a lot of struggling when sometimes the message was, I need to not be in that situation. So given where we are, we might need a healthier situation, if possible. If it's not, then we need to, do triage, right? Work with what we can. But you said the most important thing there was you realize that when they're coming at you in anger and frustration, they're suffering. That's the only reason someone can come with anger and frustration, because they're not happy, they're suffering. And so the starting point is to realize if I can at least know they're suffering, let me deal with their suffering instead of the person, which is a shift, which is somebody's yelling at me and they're doing this. Well, I know they're suffering. Well, let me deal with this suffering rather than they're being a jerk to me. And what can I do to defuse this situation? And so that becomes a starting point, which can sometimes create an opening to have a skillful transition of a discussion from, like I've had people yell at me and I've said, I am really sorry. I can see you're upset. What can I do to help? And that can often just change something when they're yelling at you and you're saying, I'm really sorry, what can I do to help? That can, whoa, right, But what happens is we're human, and I'm they're coming at me, and I'm in defensive mode. I can't always get there. But when it's not that situation, where you can start to remember that a little bit in your meditations and kind of soften, just maybe not start with taking on their suffering, but maybe just start with, hey, when you're around them, just wishing them well.
Equalizing.
Just wishing them loving kindness, metta. Just loving kindness. I hope they're well and wishing love. And it's actually palpable. And that, again, is measurable. If you're near me and I'm just really kind and loving and sweetness, there's a vibe. If I'm around you and I'm tense, there's a vibe. And so just in those times where it's kind of neutral, just try to do that and see if it doesn't touch things a little bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Dave. Yeah, good to meet you. Yeah, but remember, we are where we are. So if we screw up or if we yell,
Try to be better next time.
Yeah, there's the new moment. And, that's the thing. And if there's better situations, keep looking for those too. Yeah. All right, well, let's do a little dedication, dedicating the merit and virtue we've accumulated here for the benefit of all beings. Let us dedicate the virtue and wisdom we've accumulated both individually and collectively, both today and throughout our lives, for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be free of suffering and find lasting happiness. And may we be able to use the virtue and wisdom accumulated here today and throughout our lives to purify our own minds, to cultivate our path to enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Thank you all so much. Thank you online. May you be well, be happy, and try to stay out of trouble if you can be. Yeah. And we'll let you know about when we do the Chenrei Sig practice. So I want to get that on as soon as possible. Okay.